Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Assalamu alaikum throughout the universe. Peace and blessings. It's really an honor to be with you all and to have this really exciting program today. We're talking about what happened this Ramadan and what an incredible Ramadan it was, especially for content producers. Oftentimes within our organizations and with our institutions and at the masajid, the people who produce digital content aren't taken seriously historically. But today, as everything is happening in our world and the changing landscape of how we connect with each other, all of a sudden, digital media producers became at the center of everything in our organizations. And so we're featuring the best digital content from around the Ummah. And we realize that it has limitations by being limited to the English language this year, and we hope next year to expand it within the Center for Global Muslim Life. And so we wanted to start with a few things. First, we want to start by thanking our sponsors, Penny Appeal. Penny Appeal, this is part of the Global Muslim Film Festival that we're doing over 5 weeks, where we're featuring 50 Muslim films from around the world with 90 speakers and 30 sessions. That wouldn't have been possible without the support of Penny Appeal as our title sponsor. We're also really appreciative to Amana Mutual Funds Trust and the American Muslim Community Foundation. And the other things we want to do is we recognize everyone in the streets right now. We recognize what's happening in our world. Foundationally, the Center for Global Muslim Life, our ideology and our beliefs are rooted in similar ideology to what Malcolm X had of a global internationalist vision, that we can live in solidarity with one another and that we need to be in solidarity with people's movements around the world. And with that, we recognize the land that we're sitting on is Kumeyaay land that I'm sitting on here in San Diego, California, and that these are indigenous people's lands. And with that, we wanted to go right away to our first speaker, which is the award for the Ramadan Heroes Award. This brother was featured in a number of publications. Imam Ahmed Ali just disappeared. And so we're going to go instead to our sister Mariam from LaunchGood. And that's where we will start. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Mariam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me okay, Dustin?
I can. Thank you for joining us today. It's really a blessing to be with you. And can you just talk about, we wanted to recognize LaunchGood for the best global digital platform and the best and also the best content, the best digital campaign at large with Ramadan Challenge. This term, you have to make a LaunchGood, is synonymous now in the Muslim community. Everybody uses it. So can you talk a little bit about what the work it is you did at LaunchGood and how important it was this year?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to start off by thanking you for having us on and for the award. We're really honored. But yeah, we had the Ramadan Challenge this year, which we do annually. And essentially, the Ramadan Challenge is a challenge we're put on where we ask people to commit to giving to a different campaign on the site for every day of Ramadan. And on the flip side, we encourage organizations and individuals to host the Ramadan campaign on LaunchGood. Of course, Ramadan is the biggest giving event for Muslims worldwide. And as you can imagine, the Ramadan Challenge on LaunchGood is our biggest event of the year. And alhamdulillah, I think this year going into Ramadan, just like every Muslim in the world, we knew it was going to be certainly a very unique and very different Ramadan. And I think that also reflected on our Ramadan Challenge. We had record-breaking numbers in terms of people who started campaigns, in terms of people who signed up to do the Ramadan Challenge, numbers in terms of how many people donated, how much organizations raised. It was really just groundbreaking, and I think very telling of the situation of the world and the situation of the Muslims and how they respond to things like the state of our world today in terms of COVID-19 and everything else around the world.
So can you talk about the scale you reached? So you said you almost doubled your donations this year. Give us the data breakdown in terms of how, because what's amazing about LaunchGood is there's these global institutions that are proving the point that we as a community, Muslim community, love each other, that we support each other. And there's this data feedback that we see from films and TV series like Ertugrul, the Muslims that we talked about last weekend as part of the film festival. But I think LaunchGood is becoming one of those institutions where you see the global scale. Can you talk about how big Ramadan was for you this year.
Yep, really big. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. In the month of Ramadan, there was over $32 million raised for Launch Good projects, which is actually over double. I was double checking the numbers. It was over double what we did in 2019. We had over 250,000 donors from all over the world. We had over 22,000 people commit to giving daily. So that, our Ramadan Challenge members, those who are donating to 30 projects every single day to a different. So, and then in terms of campaigns, we had over 6,500 campaigns live on the site during Ramadan. So again, just scale that we had not seen before. And again, a reflection of where we are in the world and the need that there is. And I think the also in response, the giving that is that it was met with from the generous Muslim community during Ramadan.
Can you talk about some of the most successful campaigns during the month, some of your favorite campaigns, maybe not to say favorite, I'm sure there's a lot of your favorite, but what did well this month?
Yeah, so like you said, there's over 6,000, so there's a lot of favorites, but again, I was going back and reviewing, COVID-19 coronavirus, campaigns related to that was very popular. We had a lot of relief campaigns helping people affected, of course, people who lost their jobs or needed resources. Imam Ahmed Ali had one of the biggest campaigns out of New York, providing New York, of course, being the epicenter. We had this year an option where people could favorite their campaign using our give list. And the campaign that was most selected was for Uyghur refugees. So again, an incredible campaign that was providing relief also for refugees affected by COVID-19. As always, the Muslim community is very, very generous to countries that are facing hardship and difficulty. Yemen, Palestine, Rohingya. Some of my personal favorites, or not, you see campaigns that are providing prosthetic limbs, hearing aids, sponsorship of orphans. I mean, it's when we look at the data, there isn't really just one category that people, it's literally top 10, 10 different categories all over the world. In the last few days of Ramadan, unfortunately, there was the events of the Pakistan airplane, the downed airplane. So, mashallah, there was a campaign set up for that, and the response was incredible. So, lots of different campaigns all across the board, all across, topics and countries.
That's amazing. So what's next? I mean, you did how many millions? You did, I think, 34 million?
$32 million, yeah.
32 million. So let's think about this, brothers and sisters. $32 million to over 6,000 campaigns around the world. We don't have institutions that I can think of that were making that level of a global impact previously. And that's why when people say, oh, we should do a GoFundMe or we should do, some other platform, I always tell them personally, use LaunchGood. It's a Muslim business. It's a business that is supporting our community, supporting the growth of masajid. So what's next for LaunchGood?
Well, what's next is for us is to continue to represent the global Muslim Ummah. I mean, that's one thing I want to, emphasize on is LaunchGood is simply a reflection of the Muslim Ummah, right? At the end of the day, we're a platform. We help facilitate, the fundraising for efforts, but it's really about the people who are putting out the good work and the donors who are supporting these causes. That $32 million was the effort of the people who are fundraising and putting out the good work and the generosity of the Muslim Ummah, across the world, alhamdulillah. In terms of what's next on LaunchGood specifically, we do have Dhul Hijjah challenge. So, of course, the 10 blessed days of Dhul Hijjah are coming up pretty fast. I think what are we, a couple of weeks out now, maybe 6 weeks. And so we'll be doing something very similar to the Ramadan challenge where people can sign up to automate their giving to give to a different cause on the site every day of Dhul Hijjah, inshallah, for those 10 blessed days.
That's beautiful. So yeah, thank you again for joining us, Mariam. I think, like I said, everyone support LaunchGood, support the campaigns that are still on LaunchGood. Get your Dhul Hijjah campaigns ready. Get your Ramadan Challenge 2021 ready.
Yep.
I mean, it starts early. I mean, it was amazing also to see the daily competitions. How much money did you guys give away in the daily competitions?
We gave over, it was over $200,000 in daily prizes for campaigns.
MashaAllah. That's great.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
Yep.
All
So
right.
again, yeah, it's just the spirit of the ummah. And I guess one last thing observation we noticed. So again, going into every Ramadan, I think everyone was nervous about how are we going to fundraise this year? All of our events are canceled. And just in speaking to a lot of organizations and a lot of people who fundraised, they actually told us they ended up raising more this year. And again, a testament to the generosity of the Muslim community. Not only do we give, but in times of need, we give even more. So alhamdulillah, may Allah bless the community and allow us to continue to bring khair to the ummah.
Honestly, at the beginning of Ramadan, I was one who was saying, look, in the midst of this crisis, we could literally face masajid closing down around the country because of how we were receiving emails and phone calls from people saying we're not getting our weekly donations. We really could, close down. But alhamdulillah, I've not heard of any mosques closing down. I've not heard of any institution, Muslim community institutions closing down. And like you said, and like we'll talk about with people like Muhi and Oussama throughout the program today, actually everyone seemed to do better and raise even more money this Ramadan. So it shows, it's as we believe within our tradition, with great difficulty also comes ease. And so we see the ease and Allah's blessing in the work that we're doing. So thank you again, Sister Mariam, for all your work at Launch Good, and thank you to the whole Launch Good team.
Thank you, Dustin. Take care.
All right, assalamu alaikum. So next we're going to bring in Imam Ahmed Ali from New York, and he's from Ikra Masjid in Brooklyn. And we saw, you might have seen Imam Ahmed. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brother.
Thank you, brother, for joining us. You might have seen Imam Ahmed this month he was featured in, I believe, the New Yorker and the New York Times and AJ Plus, because you all had what I can only imagine was one of the most difficult Ramadans in your life, and where you were at the absolute epicenter of the coronavirus in Brooklyn and at your masjid, and you had to bury over 100 people, I believe. And could you just talk about, your work? And also we talked before, and you talked about how positive your outlook is on the world, and how what you feel today after going through all of this.
Brother, first of all, thank you for taking me in. And I'm sorry that I am here at one, event. So I am standing on a road, so I can talk to you guys. Brother, it was really difficult time. And I would say that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give me power to do this work, I was really unable to do anything. It's especially a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I am able to do something for our community. And it's a special blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And definitely our community supported us. Our Rayan Muslim Funeral Services, located in Brooklyn, New York, they actually called me and they asked me that all of our workers left. So if you can come and join us in helping for Muslim burials and the janaza prayers. So I really thank them that they actually cared in this time, that some imam should be in the field to help them, so they don't mess up in any burial services. So, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I was able to do over 150 burials in past 2 months.
Yes, subhanAllah. I mean, I can't imagine what that's like. Can you talk about, and this award, of course, is going to our Muslim heroes and frontliners. And so you were really a frontliner. Can you talk about how the community is doing today in New York?
Well, alhamdulillah, now the death toll is almost, it's almost over. And the city officials, they are saying that we should actually keep using the face mask to protect ourselves. And as well, if somebody is sick, they should wear face masks to protect others. And inshallah, if we follow the city officials and health officials guidelines, then I hope that inshallah we will not get into the second session of the coronavirus attack. But it was serious, and I would say that coronavirus is a serious thing, and we all should take it serious. Especially if somebody is older in your family, make sure that you take care of them, and always take city and health officials guidelines seriously. That's what I can advise my community, inshallah.
Yeah, that's good advice to everyone. And can you talk a little bit about the work you do at your masjid in Brooklyn? And you were saying, and kind of the way that you created, you were telling me as a loving place and this idea of smiling at everybody.
Well, in our masjid, the previous Ramadan and every Ramadan, we used to host about 150 people during the iftar time. We used to have sahur. But this Ramadan, masjids were closed. And so we had no activities. So we hosted everything live. And most of my work was just, going into the cemetery in the morning and coming back home by the iftar time. So it was the most difficult Ramadan I have ever experienced in my life, especially when do sahur in the morning and then pray Fajr, and then you know that now next thing you're going to do is going into the funeral home, and you don't know how many bodies you're going to take that day. So sometime I was taking out 5 bodies, sometime 15, 6, so there was no number of the bodies we know that we're going to take this day. So it was really difficult time, but alhamdulillah, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we were able to fast and help our brothers and sisters who passed away with this coronavirus.
Yeah, thank you. And may Allah bless you in all of your work, and may Allah bless you in everything that you do. Can you just talk about like who were the people that you saw in your community that were there? Was it primarily elderly community, or and do you still have some virus in Brooklyn, or is it a lot better?
Brother, in the very beginning of the coronavirus attack, I have seen that brothers over 60 years, they were the most attacked by the coronavirus. And later on, I have seen that you can say like 50 plus brothers and sisters were more affected by the virus. And that was a big number for us to handle every day, because in regular days, funeral home usually get 15 to 20 bodies a month. But during this coronavirus pandemic, we have seen 15, 20 bodies coming a day. And most of them were older brothers and sisters, you can say over 50 years old. But I have seen the dead bodies of young people also affected by the coronavirus. So I would say that everyone should take it seriously, because the coronavirus does not discriminate against Pakistani, Indians, Bangladeshi, or Americans. If you got it, you are in danger.
So how in the midst of all of this how was your Ramadan? How were you able to stay positive? As an imam in the community, how were you able to also take care of your community in the midst of all of this difficulty?
Brother, I have no power to do anything. It's just the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I was able to actually wake up while fasting and go to the cemetery, come back, and before the iftar time, I used to get home. Then I used to break fast with family, and then we used to host live stream Taraweeh prayer, and then we get done by like 11:30, then sleep, wake up again 4 o'clock, do the sahur, and then lead the live stream Fajr prayer. So that's how we spend a very painful Ramadan. But alhamdulillah, that right at the Eid day, we have seen that all the death toll is gone down to kind of normal. So now we are just receiving again, maybe you can say 20 bodies a month.
Alhamdulillah. No, it's good. It's good to know about what happened right at the epicenter, and to see that you were able to fight through this. And so we wanted to bring you on and recognize you for your work. and for your leadership in these incredibly difficult times. And may Allah bless you and your community and continue to bless you all always. Ameen. Is there anything else you want to say to the people around the
I
world?
just want to apologize that, the side I am standing, I was unable to be in a proper place to talk to all of you. And
That's
I
all
have
good.
special prayers for all of you, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all with health, wealth, and success in dunya and akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you all from every harm of dunya and akhirah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair. It's good to see you. Assalamu alaikum.
Same here, brother. Anybody have any question about the virus or anything, you guys are most welcome to reach me 24/7. I guess I am not Imam, I am your brother. I'm your family. So take me
MashaAllah.
like that.
And where can they find you? On Twitter or Facebook, or where's the best place to
You
find
can
you?
just write down Imam Ahmed Ali or go on Ikra Masjid website, ikramasjid.org, and you will get my number from there. That's, the number comes straight in my cell phone. That's
Okay.
my cell number.
Beautiful.
Okay, brother? Anything,
Jazakallah
inshallah, you
khair.
guys need, I'm always there for you guys.
Okay. Thank you so much. Assalamu
Yes,
alaikum.
we are family. We have to live like a family. We are one family.
That's right. And as you told me earlier, you have to keep smiling. And it's beautiful to see your
Yes.
beautiful smile. Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullahu khairan wa
Oh, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So next we have Imam Omar Suleiman, who sent a really beautiful video in today for the program to accept. They won multiple awards, including for best video series. And what I love about what Imam Omar says is he talks about how important it was to have how he couldn't have done this without his team. And many people just see the videos and they imagine, oh, Imam Omar came up with this whole thing himself. But he talks about how the team worked on the script and the level of editing and design that went into all of their work that they did at Yaqeen Institute. So mashallah, here's the video.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. This is your brother, Omar Suleiman. I am pleased to be here on behalf of the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research to accept, on behalf of the entire team, the award for Best Overall Content and the award for the Best Ramadan Series from the Center for Global Muslim Life. We are a team, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, of multiple creatives, multiple screenwriters. There was so much that went into what took place this Ramadan. And I want to actually just speak to the way that this all came about. The Angel series was something that I actually had started to work on from the Ramadan prior. I thought, what better way to build from Allah loves than to talk about the second pillar of faith, being the Malaika, being the angels, but speak about the second pillar of faith in a way that would speak to the practical element of engaging that pillar of faith, which was to not just speak about the angels as some, phenomenon that exists in the background, but to speak about them and to engage the Malaika in a way that we would then bring about practical actions in our lives that would bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who sends the angels when there are deeds that are being done that are pleasing to him. And, as the COVID era came to be, we actually recorded that series, alhamdulillah, the week after the shutdown. And we recorded it over a period of 2 days, but then all of the treatment that went into it, the graphics, everything from the filming to the graphics. And so I want to accept that award on behalf of the team, the creative team, our incredible crew that filmed and that worked the graphics into it, the animations, everything that was done with that team, the marketing team, alhamdulillah, which then made sure that it reached places where Islamic content might not have reached before. The Quran 30 for 30 was something that came about just a couple of weeks before Ramadan, where we thought to ourselves, you know what, this is an opportunity for people to engage the Quran this Ramadan, since people will be home and people will need to develop a relationship with the Quran in a very unique way, in a way that they had not been asked to do in the past. And so alhamdulillah, that came together and we were able to form truly an online community, and had over 10 people accept Islam just through the comments of Quran 30 for 30 within that online community. took Shahada with us over Zoom. And here we are, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, post-Ramadan. And I really want to thank the community as a whole. When all of this happened, we tried to come together as a team and adjust. And alhamdulillah, we are a team of over 40 people on staff, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, that decided that we were going to work as much as we could to comfort the community and give the community clarity and spiritual nourishment at this time. And the community really supported us, alhamdulillah. The community formed around the content that, gathered around the content that we were putting out, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, and let us know that it was having a meaningful impact in their lives. And so I just want you to know that if you left a nice comment or if you sent a nice email, that it was received and that it really helped our team to continue going strong in moments of exhaustion and, being tired from working late nights, to putting in all of those extra details to benefit the community. And if you didn't send an email or didn't put a comment, but you made dua for us, I want you to know that it really is appreciated, and that it may be your dua that allowed this team to be able to come together to put out this content for the benefit of the community, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. And we ask for your continued du'as, your continued support. And we are grateful for the award. But all this does is it reminds us that we have a great responsibility to the community, inshallah ta'ala, to be there as a source of conviction, as a source that inspires contribution, as a source for clarity in the midst of so much uncertainty. And we find all of that in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps our hearts connected and united and always in pursuit of Him. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you once again for this incredible honor. On behalf of the Yaqeen team, Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Jazakallah khair, Imam Omar. I think it's really incredible to see what can be done and what your team has done. Like you said, a team of 40 doing this rapid response work online, and the level of impact that you all were able to make at Yaqeen. So next we want to go to my brother Oussama Mezoui, who is the CEO of Penny Appeal USA. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Dustin, how are you?
Good. It's great to see you. MashaAllah. How's everything?
Alhamdulillah. Likewise. Great to see you. Can't complain. It's lovely to see Imam Omar. I was one of the viewers every night for the 30 for 30. So I'm still having the Ramadan withdrawal.
Yeah, I think we all are. I think that's what was amazing about this Ramadan, is that we were really able to consume content from around the world. We were able to see so much, and there was so much inspiring content. Can you talk a bit about, at Penny Appeal, you all are a fairly new organization in the US still, but you've really had rapid growth since you opened this Penny Appeal chapter in the US. Can you talk about how this Ramadan was different than previous Ramadans, and the work that you all are doing?
Yeah, happy to. So first and foremost, let me give a bit of context, perhaps to the viewers. So Penny Appeal is first and foremost really honored and proud to be working with you, Dustin, on this really first online Muslim film festival. As maybe your viewers can see, Penny Appeal is one of the sponsors, and we're really happy to have made the film festival possible. And lots of people may be thinking, well, why would Penny Appeal do this? What's the connection? So first and foremost, to our donors, to say thank you for your support. A lot of you have been stuck at home. Some of the movies that have been shown are fantastic. So we wanted, as really a gesture of thank you, gratitude to our donors, to thank everybody for supporting Penny Appeal. And this is a small aid gift from us to our supporters all over the United States, first and foremost. So thank you to everybody who supported us throughout the month of Ramadan. Two, it's amazing the impact and the role of creativity and media and film and photography in the work that we do as a non-profit. At the end of the day, our success as a non-profit lies in telling a story, in the power, in the art of narrative. What we see as humanitarians, right? Penny Appeal USA, of course, is a relief and development agency. We work to eradicate poverty here in the United States and globally. And we're only able to do that through the generous support of our supporters, our donors, our volunteers. And the best way we can do that, the best way we can encourage support is through telling a story, right? How do we explain what we see as humanitarians in many countries that we work in, whether it be Pakistan, whether it be Kashmir, Palestine, the Central African Republic, Gambia, all of these countries where we are present, where we are running programs. How do we tell the story of our beneficiaries to an American audience? And that's really why we use media, we use film, we use photography, we use creatives to tell a story so that we're able to tell the narrative. And so that's first and foremost, I think, important to mention, that it's in the world we live in, and of course a globalized world, but an interconnected world, the non-profit world is not separate to, if you like, the world of creatives and artists and filmmakers and designers and photographers. Actually, it's very much intertwined. The better that we can tell a story, the better narrative we tell as a non-profit, the more support we can get for our humanitarian programs. So that's really just as a way of introduction. Untitled USA, go ahead, Dustin.
No, I was just saying, thank you so much and in terms of narrative support, we wanted to thank you again for your support on this Global Muslim Film Festival. It's an honor to work with you all. And I think that you're right. It's a gift to the community to be able to say, how do we build our own narratives? It's at the core of what you all have been doing at Penny Appeal USA and approaching things in a way of narrative building around the work, right? And really high quality production. So talk a little bit about this Ramadan and what you saw.
So of course, I mean, everyone's experienced a very, very unique Ramadan in lots and lots of ways. I think it was unique for me as an individual, first and foremost, and for many humanitarian workers. And I think it's important to mention this. Your NGOs in the Muslim space, right? Think of whether they be relief and development agencies, whether they be local social service organizations, whether they are working in an array of education or healthcare. Muslim non-profit workers work tremendously hard in the month of Ramadan, right? Why? Because Ramadan is an opportunity, of course, for fundraising. The reality is that it's based on studies done by the Lilly School of Philanthropy at Indiana, for example. Many organizations, 70 to 80% of their revenue is from Ramadan. So Ramadan is this really peak season for us. I think for relief and development agencies, on average, our revenue is about 50% from Ramadan. And of course, that changes depending on the size of the nonprofit. The point being, Ramadan is key. And so for many of us who've been working in this space, Ramadan is really, there's very little time for personal spiritual reflection, right? There's very little time spent at home with family or in worship, in prayer, in thought. We're on the road usually, driving hundreds, if not thousands of miles. We're flying all over the country. We're going mosque to mosque, iftar to iftar, soliciting important support for the work that we do. And so I know for myself and many humanitarians in the space and many non-profit workers generally, this was personally one of the best Ramadans we've had, because we were able to at least enjoy iftar at home with our families, have a little bit of spiritual time, enjoy Quran recitation, etc., etc., and something that we are not traditionally afforded. So that, I think, it's worth mentioning first and foremost. However, you juxtaposition that with the challenges that we are facing as a non-profit sector, as an industry. Of course, we are facing unprecedented challenges and difficulties. It's no secret, those organizations like Penny Appeal USA that are funded on the whole, in a large part, from public contributions, the generous donations of individuals, they get impacted when the economy is in crisis, right? When people are losing their jobs in their millions, when people are not sure where their next rent payment is going to come from, that, of course, impacts our revenue as non-profit organizations. And so that's been really very interesting, because Ramadan came quickly into the COVID crisis. Many of us, in fact, all of us, had to cancel all of our offline fundraising. And so think about the fact that many, many Muslim non-profits rely on Jum'ah collections, rely on Taraweeh collections. We rely on bringing our supporters together in iftar events, private events, galas, etc. All of that had to be cancelled very quick, very soon, very shortly before the month of Ramadan. And so we was, you can imagine, Plan B had to come into effect very, very quickly in a short period of time. We had to regather, refocus, and say, look, non-profits serve important missions, important causes, whether it be education, whether it be healthcare, whether it be, for us, of course, poverty alleviation. How do we do justice to our mission? How do we make sure that we continue to support our beneficiaries at a time when we cannot fundraise offline? And so that's where, of course, the online space became very, very important, as you've been discussing for the last half an hour or so, and hence these awards. Every nonprofit had to step up and take advantage of the online space, whether it be small masjids, small places of worship, mosques, small community-based organizations, social service groups, or even massive NGOs like Penny Appeal and Islamic Relief and others. We had to really change our strategy in the month of Ramadan. And so, of course, there were challenges that come with that, having to refocus, having to scrap Plan A, go to Plan B. It was a very nerve-wracking time. Many hours were spent working. Like, Imam Omar Suleiman said, lots of people at Penny Appeal and our team having to work very, very hard to make sure that we get our message out. And at the end of the day, we are simply messengers, right? We enable, we empower Americans to support those most in need, not just fellow Americans and neighbors, but also people all over the world. And so our message, or really our job, is as messengers, as storytellers. And so if we can't tell that story in person, in front of a mosque audience, or in front of a captive audience in a gala or an iftar, how do we tell that story online? And that's where we saw really a proliferation of webinars and emails and videos and online content in general. However, that came with its own challenges, of course, not just the technology, having the technology in place, but also the competition, right? We know that in the last 30, 40, 50 years, there's lots of studies about attention span, that the more and more and more online stuff we see, the more technologically advanced we are becoming as a society, the smaller our attention span. And there's phenomenal studies out there about, for example, newspapers from 30, 40 years ago that used to be 95% word print and very small images, to newspapers today, which are on the whole large images, advertisements, and pictures with very small, short articles, right? Showing that our attention span has changed drastically. So in that context, we were competing this Ramadan with not just the traditional powerhouses online, who've always had a very strong presence, larger organizations with a track record in online advertisement and online fundraising. This Ramadan, we were competing with organizations that traditionally did not compete in the online space. Your local masjid, your local soup kitchen, local initiatives, right? What we call mom and pop kind of initiatives that were traditionally offline were now having a very strong online presence. And so, just to summarize, we had to really change our plans drastically in a very short period of time. B, it was a very, very competitive space. And so we had to deal with that noise, if you like, right? I just think of my own Facebook feed, and every day, hundreds of webinars, hundreds, if not thousands of posts and Facebook pages, not just on Launch Good, which is a platform we've always, had fantastic results on and that we really enjoy partnering with, but lots and lots of other platforms too. So what were the results of that is really kind of the next, Dustin, what I wanted to discuss was, so how did Ramadan go for us and for others?
Yeah, go ahead. That's what I was going to ask I think what's surprising is that while we thought there would be great difficulty, and of course there was difficulty in being at home for our institutions, it seems like most of the institutions around the world still did really, really well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it's worth saying that all we have right now are theories, are indicators, are possibilities, if you like. It's way too soon to have any concrete conclusions around the impact of COVID-19 on non-profit revenue or on non-profit organizations. It's just impossible to know. Lots and lots of articles are out there. Some really good surveys and studies are coming out slowly that are giving us an image or a picture of what it's looking like. But I think it's way too soon. And the reality, what we all agree on as an industry, as a sector, is that we will know the impact of COVID-19 on the sector within 6 to 12 months, because there is always a little bit of that lag time as the economy, the impact on the economy really starts to impact households and families, and people really start to think seriously about their giving patterns. However, there are a number of studies out there that have been done that I think are really worth sharing and discussing. First and foremost, some really interesting finds. The Indiana University, IUPUI, issued a study that they published on May 29th. They surveyed 2,000 people. So this is the school, the Lilly School of Philanthropy at the Indiana University. And they found that from the 2,000 individuals or donors that they surveyed, of those that were more fearful, they were more likely to give to a charity, to give a donation to a charity. And so those who were fearful, who were more concerned about the impact of COVID-19 on themselves, on their families, on the economy, those who were very worried or agitated, 44% of them were more likely to give than those who were not fearful. So what does fear do to a donor? It's something we're looking at and we're studying as a sector. What we've seen as in the Muslim space, which is a niche space, is that in times of hardship, Muslims often step up and give more. Now, why is that? Of course, we think that has to do with our faith, with our tradition, which is that in times of hardship, we give more. We expecting, inshallah, for Allah's help in times of difficulty, times of sickness, times of financial difficulty, etc. So that could be one. Two is people understand that there's a lot of pain out there. When people are fearful in times of difficulty, those of us who are blessed to have wealth, to have jobs, to have an income, to have health, we think of those who are really facing challenges and difficulties. And so we step up understanding that there is a need. So that's an interesting study. I think it's worth noting. And so for us, Ramadan came so quickly into the COVID pandemic that what we saw was an increase in revenue. So Penny Appeal USA, alhamdulillah, thanks to really generous supporters all over the country, we actually saw a 65% increase in revenue from last Ramadan. Now, how much of that is due to COVID? Impossible to tell right now. It's way too early. Of course, those of you familiar with our journey, Penny Appeal USA launched in 2016. And alhamdulillah, again, thanks to our generous supporters, we've grown kind of exponentially every year. We've nearly doubled in size every year. So this 65% growth, was it part of our normal trajectory, or did COVID have a role to play in that? But alhamdulillah, I know that we've done well, but not just Penny Appeal USA has done well. Having spoken to other organizations in the relief and development space, I know that they also have had record Ramadan. And so again, because we are service organizations, giving access to goods and services to those most in need, most of our donors understand that and therefore stepped up to support us. But actually, I'm also a board member of a number of organizations, including the ISPU, which is, if you like, the opposite of what we do at Penny Appeal USA, which is really a think tank, which is a research organization focused on developing data and research around Muslims and different aspects of Muslim life in America. But I know that even at the ISPU, we not only hit our target, but we surpassed our target, even at a time when people are not really thinking about data and research, and they're thinking more about food and rent and providing services to people in need. So from a lot of the organizations that I've spoken to, I know that they're seeing record Ramadans and they're seeing an increase in revenue. But what does this mean for the sector? I think it's too soon to know the impact. And what we're seeing is we are predicting and expecting a massive negative impact in the next 6 to 12 months, as again, people start to feel the real impact of an economic downturn, which everyone agrees now is actually going to be even worse than I think the 2008 recession. And if I can kind of just briefly, Dustin, mention for example, poll done by Gallup, which is showing that American households today, less American households today are giving to charity than they did 20 years ago. And this is the pattern that everyone has seen and that we kind of all agree on, which is that actually 20 million households are less, 20 million less households are giving to charity today than they gave in 2009. And so we're seeing a trajectory of less and less American households giving to charity. That was pre-COVID. Of course, COVID is not going to help that. We're also seeing that more and more money is coming from the HNDs, or the high net worth donors, those in the top 1%, 2, 3%. They are giving more into charity. And those, if you like, in the middle and the bottom of the socio-economic stratas, they are giving less to charity. And so these are, again, interesting patterns that are of real concern to the nonprofit sector. Less people, less households are giving to charity pre-COVID. An economic downturn is not going to help that. And so the real question for the Muslim nonprofit space, I think, isn't around Ramadan and whether we did well or not in Ramadan. It's what do we do for the next 6 months? All of our tours have been cancelled. I know at Pennypool USA, we had 2 large tours planned, nationwide tours, that of course have been cancelled. That's the same for every nonprofit I know. We will not be hosting galas for the next 6 months. We will not be hosting any in-person events. So outside of Ramadan, how do we survive the off-peak season or the off-peak period? And that really is an unknown story. There's a lot of nervousness in the sector. And so I guess one pitch I will say to everyone, all the viewers this evening, everyone watching this recording, don't forget your local masjid, your local mosque. Don't forget your local organization. Don't forget the relief and development agencies that you support. Just because you may not see them in person, make an extra effort if you can, if you're blessed to have an income and have a job and have stability, to support these fantastic organizations online through setting up a online regular donation, which is really the most sustainable way to give.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for joining us. And I know you all have been doing a ton of work that's so important, including the fund that you had before Ramadan that was going to support people who are really struggling, and artists. And so you all have been working definitely on the front lines as well. And we thank you. And we thank you for supporting the arts and for digital media work in the community broadly, and for supporting this film festival. So with that, we're going to say salam and thank you again, brother, and Allah bless you and everyone at Penny Appeal for the work that you do.
Thank you, Dustin. Jazakallah khair. Thanks for the film festival. Keep up the great work. Look forward to continuing the collaboration.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. So with that, next we're going to go to our brother Haroon Sellers in the Bay Area, who is one of the oldest employee, I believe, at Zaytuna College. We'll bring in brother Haroon. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mic check, 1, 2.
Yeah, you got a little bit. It's a little bit scratchy, actually.
A little bit scratchy. Let me try raising this up a little bit. Let me make sure I got my USB mic going. It should be. Okay, let me just actually lower my mic a little bit. And you tell me if that's a little bit better.
Yeah, that's better. I
Check
just wouldn't.
1, 2. How about that?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, you're good, I think.
Okay.
No, it still is a little bit scratchy.
Okay, hold on. I know how to fix it. The AV guy.
The AV guy with the issues.
Hold on.
It could be the AirPods, actually.
Hold on 1 second.
So we'll come back to you in just a minute.
Okay, and let me just drop my volume down.
Yeah, that's better.
References. Check 1, 2. Check.
Live programs. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, now how about that?
Yeah, just speak up a little bit.
Sensitivity. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. It's perfect now. Yeah, so thank you, Haroon, for joining us. I wanted to give Zaytuna, of course, all the shout outs and for your incredible work that you did this year during Ramadan, where you were actually streaming. You guys have been doing this for so long that it was less difficult for you all to get everything together. But I wanted to tell a personal story real quick about brother Haroon. Is, when way back in the day, I moved to California in 2006 to work with Zaytuna and to learn from Imam Zaid and Sheikh Hamza. And I remember brother Haroon was one of the first people I met And it was back then, it was podcasting. Zaytuna just was posting lectures on the old iTunes store, and that's how we were able to get the media. And so Zaytuna, one of the reasons why it's grown the way it's grown and now into a multi-million-dollar institution with, I think 3 campuses in Berkeley and this incredible campus in the Berkeley Hills, is because of its digital media work. And Brother Haroon has always been at the center of that. He literally has hard drives, mashallah, of content that we pray that Zaytuna unlocks that vault some point in the not too distant future, and especially in the midst of everything going on now. I know, Haroon, you actually moved to the West Coast from the East Coast to start that work. Can you talk about your background and your background as a media producer? We wanted to give love today for the media producers, and I couldn't think of anyone better than yourself to really bring on the program to talk about this work.
SubhanAllah, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. First of all, thanks to lots of love and appreciation to you, Brother Craun. I really appreciate you shining a spotlight on Islamic media. And in terms of my background, I'm a convert to Islam. I became Muslim in 1994. So obviously, as you know, as a fellow convert, information about Islam becomes crucial. And in terms of my background, I was a graphic arts major with a minor in music. Also had some film experience, had done some commercials, been an extra in some movies. I was also a singer in an alternative rock band and also did some alternative hip hop. So I've always been about media and film, multimedia and audiovisual. I did a minor in film at Virginia Commonwealth University. So that's always been at the forefront. So when I become Muslim, one of my first priorities is how do I consume Muslim content, and what also is the quality of that content. So one of the first VHS tapes that I got a hold of was a VHS tape that featured Imam Shiraz Wahaj and also Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. And that was life-changing for me as a convert. Those 2 imams in particular. Imam Siraj was really going hard, and mashallah, is so passionate. Anybody who's heard Imam Siraj's recordings, you know what I'm talking about. And then you had Sheikh Hamza, a white American convert, really emphasizing the purification of the heart and loving the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I was really impressed with that, but always still felt like, wow, I'd like to see if I can contribute with my background experience in the AV world to how I can make that better. And alhamdulillah, to make a long story short, after meeting Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, and then receiving and actually making a proposal like, hey, I'd love to come out and just help you guys get into digital audio game, because his content was on cassette tape at that time, and I just wanted it to move into the CD realm. And long story short, alhamdulillah, I moved out to the Bay Area to try to make that happen, and I've been serving ever since the summer of 2000.
MashaAllah, that's really amazing, and it's amazing to see the level of work that you all have done. And like I said, that you all had the shots with the perfect lighting and with the perfect setup, MashaAllah. And I think while everybody's struggling, like I said, the reason that Zaytuna was able to jump so far is because you had been live streaming. I think you used the Vimeo platform, correct? And I think Vimeo has the ability to stream at the highest levels. It's also one of the more expensive platforms to use. But I think that you all had made that commitment to audio quality, video quality, lighting. And so can you just talk about what went into this amazing series that you did with Sheikh Hamza this year?
Yeah, first of all, I have to admit, and I'm happy to admit, that I'm really standing on the shoulders of the people who are trying to lay down this work, especially at Zaytuna Institute, before me with, Ustaz Feridun Majeddidi, also Sheikh Hamza's sister Nabila, cranking out cassette tapes and CDs through Humber Productions. So working specifically, coming to work with Sheikh Hamza specifically, as you know, Brother Craun, Sheikh Hamza is all about ihsan. That is, if you just think of one word associated with Sheikh Hamza, to me it's ihsan. To do things with an excellence that's characterized by beauty. And to be frank, I have to, I really thank him for this, and may Allah reward him continuously for this, because I do hope to be a Sadaqah Jariyah for him and all the teachers I've been blessed to record over the years. That, when you're a mom and pop kind of institution, that doesn't have these big budgets, a lot of times it's the kind of artsy things that are the first to let go when you have budget crunches. And the Zaytuna Institute, and then let alone transitioning into Zaytuna College, we're literally funded by the community. So things have always been tight. Alhamdulillah, that's what keeps us on our toes, but we still have tried to have an ethos that quality shouldn't suffer. There shouldn't be a lack of quality because you have a lack of money, And so, alhamdulillah, over the years, that's never wavered. Sheikh Hamza's definitely always had a vision concerning the importance of media itself, and having a presence, a quality presence for Islamic knowledge out there in the media space. So fast forwarding to this Ramadan, oh my God, nobody saw the COVID situation coming in, the quarantine. So there was a lot of scrambling, especially as a college. I mean, you all know some of what, a little bit of what colleges have gone through, and the shifts that have been suddenly made in the college atmosphere due to this COVID crisis. So let alone AV production. But as you said, because there had always been live streaming, to tell you the truth, I had participated in a Zaytuna Institute live stream back in the 90s around the presence of African Muslims in America. When it was, you had to have a very specific type of connection in the classroom. So then when we came to Institute, we then tried, internet-based distance learning at a kind of experimental level. And then, alhamdulillah, like you said, once we got to the college, I was using Ustream through the internet. And then we went to livestream.com. Livestream.com was purchased by Vimeo. That's what we're doing now. And alhamdulillah, I've just been blessed to have built up my understanding of live streaming best practices, made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I'm thankful I've also tried to share my knowledge of live streaming and show other Islamic institutions, such as the community, led by Imam Fahim Shuaib, Tetleaf Collective. I've been really thankful that folks have reached out to me because of my consistency in that sphere, so that I can help them not make the mistakes that I made. So coming up to Ramadan, broadcasting in a COVID situation, what I really wanted to do was see how I could make things look better, beyond just the webcam mode. So it was a big challenge, having to travel to a space outside my home, while also practicing social distancing, keeping the environment safe, building an actual, set piece backdrop, and doing a 2-cam, multicam setup, streaming in HD, and then after that, deciding I wanted to do a 4K workflow after that everything we posted from that series would be in 4K, so that people, my theme was that if we have a clear message, I want to have a clear image for a clear message. That became my theme. And shout out to the marketing team, honestly, at Zaytuna that I work with, and shout out to my right-hand man, Naeem Baya, mashallah, who's my audio-visual, specialist extraordinaire.
MashaAllah. Yes, we wanted to thank you. Allah bless you and continue to bless you. We want to ask for your prayers, of course, in these times. Haroon is a really special brother, mashallah, who, like I said, has been at one of the backbones of building Zaytuna into what it is today. May Allah give you that sadaqah jariyah that you asked for. Ameen. Yeah, brother. Thank you for joining us. And like he said,
thank you.
Reach out to Brother Haroon, all you institutions who need support.
Yeah, people trying to figure it out, reach out. hsellers@zaytuna.edu. And then my last name, SELLARS @zaytuna.edu. If you're trying to figure out live streaming, some best practices, the gear, the platforms, I'm at your service. And I do want to close with saying that I really want to invite all of every Muslim that's engaging in the media sphere, in the audiovisual world, to just do it with intentions. Make intentions to not just be out there doing something. No, make intentions to spread light. Make intentions to spread light. That's been my ethos, and I really want as many Muslims as possible to join that we have to be people of light and spread light. And I'll close, inshallah, just by saying the supplication for light. Oh Allah, place in our hearts light, and on our tongues light, and in our ears light, and in our sight light, and above us light, and below us light, and to our right light, and to my left light, and before us light, and behind us light. Place in our souls light, magnify for us light, and amplify for us light. Make us light and make each of us lights. Oh God, grant us light and place in our nerves light, and in our body light, and in our blood light, and in our hair light, and in our skin light. This thing that people are tripping on right now, skin color. Look at this supplication. And in my skin light. And God, make for us a light in our graves and a light in our bones. Increase us in light, increase us in light, increase us in light, and grant us light upon light.
Ameen. And with that, we say, Dr. Tamara, Ameen.
Ameen.
MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, rahmatullah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we wanted to say Ameen to Brother Haroon's dua. And thank you, Brother Haroon, for your dua. We're going to talk to Dr. Tamara now. We'll see you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Dr. Tamara, mashallah, so good to see you. I'm such a big fan of your work. There's so much to talk about. Thank you for taking the time today.
I'm so happy to be here. I am actually in a car driving from St. Louis to Minneapolis. I'm not driving. I'm riding.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for, even though you're on the go, thank you for taking the time to be with us. We've been having this film festival this month, and I'm going to start in a random place, but I saw related to the film festival, I saw the really beautiful short video of you and that your sister made, who's a musician. Yes. MashaAllah. And it's so beautiful. I don't know, can you tell us the name of the song and talk about, I wanted to feature it. I wanted to talk to you about it during the film festival, but such a cute song with you and your sister and really giving love to you and the Muslim community.
It really is. And for my sister, it was really an act of bravery because the song is called You're Talking About My Sister. And my sister is a country western singer. And so her audience is mostly, or is, let's say primarily or majority, those who are heavily influenced by hate. And so for her, it was very much an act of bravery to not only write the song, not only sing the song, it's her only music video that she's ever done. And she did it because she wanted to amplify the message in the song, which is that for her, I'm not sitting in the back anymore. You're talking about my sister. Why do we feel this way about Muslims? They pray every day for mercy. What is your problem with my sister or her or those who are Muslims praying for mercy? So so for my sister, it was really an act of bravery, and it was really very much something that's dear to her heart and dear to my heart. And she's, of course, touched me very much in her investment in that, because it's an emotional and huge financial investment to create a music video.
Yeah, mashallah. And so I'll put the link in the comments section for people to see the video, but I just thought that was a unique place to start. But of course, you're best known for your work with your institution, Rabada, since you came back to the U.S. Can you, and I heard, I think my good friend and sister Hazel Gomez was also telling me that you have, your PhD work is in digital kind of media study and congregations. Can you talk a bit about your research and how that is manifesting in the communities you're building with Rabata?
Yeah, for sure. So part of the research for my dissertation was around the concept of digital religion. And digital religion is the idea that we are meeting together to practice religion in online spaces. And actually, there's a lot of research here in the area that I was unaware of before I started on my road of researching this concept. It starts in the 90s and really continues. So we have 40 years of research around the idea of how do we come together as community online? What does religious leadership look like online? And what does it mean to use our digital spaces to practice ritual, for example? So your question of how does this apply itself to, I suppose, how the community is coming together, I think especially during COVID is really applicable, or maybe we should say it's come to the forefront that we have to face the fact that the virtual world or the online world, I don't like to use the word virtual because the online world is a real space. So one of the points when I talk about female leadership, Muslim women's leadership in digital religion in my dissertation. And one of the things that I think about in that research, or one of the things that I was thinking about, was this idea of neighborhoods. So like as a woman who's a leader, what neighborhood do we live in? So maybe I personally live in Minneapolis. Rabata is global, so we have chapters in different places. But a lot of our work works in online neighborhoods. So now very often we're in the Zoom neighborhood. When we're in social media on Facebook, we're in the Facebook neighborhood and the Twitter neighborhood, Instagram neighborhood, or a learning management system style of neighborhoods or buildings. And so when you start to think like that, you start to remove the barrier of online work. One of the issues that I've seen in Muslim communities, especially for people that are a little bit older, and I can say that because I'm one of those people, is this idea that somehow what's online isn't real. And we really have to get over that. We've got to come to the concept and understand the idea that what we do online affects us emotionally, it affects us physically, it affects us intellectually, and so it is just as real. So it's a different kind of neighborhood. We might feel differently there than we feel in a different neighborhood we go to, but nonetheless, it's a neighborhood. It's a place that we go to experience our faith in one way or another. Yeah, so I think.
Yeah, mashallah, that's a great way to think about it. So you guys have built now an amazing neighborhood. So let's talk about this Ramadan. So talk about the scale of what you're building, how you're creating space for women all over. I think I saw that you had videos from different countries, right, from your community. Mashallah, I think that because the work and the importance of female Islamic leadership is so foundationally important. I think it's one of the most important things that we all can support and work on because it will bring great balance. And we don't have the clergy issues that other communities have, meaning that we don't, while the man may lead the prayer, it doesn't mean that he's the only religious leader, right? We don't have the issues that the Christians have, but yet we've internalized those things. And so can you just talk about kind of the scale of what you saw this Ramadan and the programs that you were building?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different parts of your question. I'll try to address them separately. One is scale. I think that our programming seems to be growing at a very quick rate, partially because we live in a global society. And so women are facing similar issues across cultures. And especially, religion in the West, in the global world, religion is sort of the last place where it's okay to mock people. So it's okay to mock the very religious, whether Christian or Jew or Muslim. A person who is attempting to hold on to their faith is sort of the last place that people are like, well, it's okay for you to mock that person or not accept that person in your society or community or what have you. And for Muslim women, a practicing Muslim woman wears her religion on her sleeve, on her head. And so we're really always, when we are walking around wherever we happen to be in the world, we're really saying, I believe in God, I believe in God, I believe in God, I believe in God. You don't have to say it with your mouth because you're saying it with your clothing. And what that means in different areas that we live in is it manifests differently for every woman, of course, but there are similarities. It means, on one hand, that sometimes it means that we have different experiences at work than we have in our Muslim community. So when we go to work, when Muslim women go to work in a professional environment, like as a doctor or a principal or a teacher, what have you, legally, generally, they're not dealing with too much negativity, so they're able to get hired and get that work done. They might deal with some sort of pushback at work, but in general, if they're doing their job and if they're qualified and they're good at what they do, they're going to find themselves successful. When she goes to her masjid, on the other hand, she may not even have access to the main prayer space. She may not even be able to have a voice on the board. She may be considered sort of a secondary citizen at the masjid. And I said it before and I'll say it again. When we are sidelining women, we are sidelining our faith. We have to understand the critical nature of this issue. And you said something interesting. You said that we don't have clergy in Islam, so we should be dealing with some of the things that our Christian and Jewish brothers and sisters in Abrahamic faith are dealing with. There I am. Actually, we are, and one of the reasons is because Imam, in the same way, minister, male and female leadership, we need those who can lead prayer and lead us in spirituality and in ritual worship. But traditionally, our religious leadership has always had an aspect.
We lost her. It seems like she was going through some type of, she was driving. So Allah bless Dr. Tamara. Inshallah, if she comes back, we'll bring her back into the conversation. I think that, and the point that she was making there, I wasn't saying that we don't have clergy. I was saying we have a different type of clergy. Actually, I think she is back. Let me try to add her. Are you back? Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
I'm so sorry. It seems I got cut off. It was when you lost me.
No, it's fine. And I think what I was saying is, I wasn't saying that we don't have clergy. I was saying we don't have the same type of clergy issues, meaning that we have broad scholarship, including female scholarship. And I like the way that you framed it. That while you have someone that leads the prayer, do you have people who can deal with with people's hearts in the masjids? And the idea that only men can deal with hearts, that could even be dangerous. So can you continue the point that you were making there when you were cut off?
Yes, quite so. Yeah, so I think that we as communities need to start taking this very seriously, and every community should have a female scholar. Absolutely. And the imam should be a well-trained, not just a qadi, not just someone who can recite the Quran well. In fact, I think the ideal situation is let's have a qadi, let's have so helping us to interact and communicate with our community and our neighbors and build institutions and projects and programs that help us be better citizens wherever we are and wherever we happen to live. And we have to keep women involved in this. A lot of our immigrant masajid, for whatever reason, I think at this point is less important than the importance of ensuring that as we go forward, women are part and parcel of decision making, of leadership, of growth and of that religious aspect of leadership and guidance in the community. It's a critical point that we have to hold on to. And really historically, even, subhanAllah, if we want to do that comparison, even as you look at the Christian and Jewish communities as they work to bring women back to the forefront, if you look historically, even as women were not allowed to take positions of leadership, they were still counted on to build culture within those communities. And as they sidelined women, what has happened? We were there, the Christian and Jewish communities of faith will tell you they're losing their membership, they're losing people. And so we as Muslims, we need to understand it's beautiful. That is, in my opinion, part of the main prayer space. Then what we're doing is we are laying the groundwork to set a legacy of a smaller masjid, of a masjid that will not have families, of a shrunken community of practicing believers. And that is something to take very, very seriously.
Yeah, mashallah, and I just again want to thank you. We should have a longer conversation, inshallah, when you're not driving. But I think that it's just such incredible work. Like I said, however we can support it, we want to support your work and continue to amplify in any small way. May Allah bless you and all your work. Can you give us a small a dua to close out?
I mean, I didn't get a chance to say thank you. I really appreciate the recognition for our online work and also for our work in reaching out to women. It was I just really appreciate it. The fact that you have this award and the fact that you are looking at digital media in the Muslim community and recognizing those who are using these tools and working really hard. I think that by itself is important work. So I appreciate you doing that work. And then I also certainly appreciate the feeling of being seen. It's really, I mean, we're working and we're doing our best, of course, alhamdulillah, and we all are working fi sabilillah, and we want that pure intention, but there's something really special about knowing that someone has seen your work. So I really appreciate that, and I thank you for the recognition.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So if I'm going to close with a dua, I will close with the dua that Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If I may just say one more quick thing, that one of the du'as we were closing with, that we were doing all of Ramadan, is a special du'a that goes back to Ibn Arabi. And this du'a turned out to be something really powerful because we were saying it because we were thinking about COVID and we were asking for special protection from COVID and from the financial and emotional and of course physical negative effects of COVID. But as the protests after the death of George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd, and the protests, and I'm from Minneapolis, so I'm right there in that space. We've been saying it as a group as well, recognizing the incredible wording in there that asks us for protection from oppressors and asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that protection from oppression and through the powerful words of the Quran to really make us a different ummah. So it's a very long dua, I won't be repeating it, but I'll just say a couple of words. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya Allah, we ask of you in your great power, in that you are the strong and you are the merciful and you are the one, al-Ahad, al-Wahid, that you help us to be the community that you have risen us up to be, those who call to what is beautiful and good and healthy and full of light and love and joy, and push back against all that is ugly and of oppression and harmful and painful to anyone. Ya Rabbil Alameen, sallallahu ala Sayyidina Habibina Muhammad, ala niyat al-qabul maghfira wa rahma al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Muhammad. Thank you so much.
Inshallah, we'll see you again soon. Assalamu alaikum. Next, we have our brother Imam Jihad Safir from just up the road from me in Los Angeles. Assalamu alaikum, Imam Jihad.
Wa alaikum assalam. How's everything, Brother Dustin?
Alhamdulillah. It's good to see you.
Always good to see you, man. How you doing? Okay?
Yeah, we're good. I miss being in your presence. Islah LA is one of my favorite. I always say it's one of my favorite masjids in the whole world. It has as
Alhamdulillah.
much light as any masjid I've ever stood foot in my whole life. And may Allah continue to increase your work.
Ameen, ameen, ameen.
Yeah, so we wanted to recognize the amazing work that you all did this Ramadan, and with the awards, you were involved in at least 3 that we awarded. One was Best Mosque Content for Islah LA, mashallah, amazing.
Wow.
And then we gave an award for Most Diverse Content to Ramadan. And the reason we gave that, it's not just because of the amazing alliance and group of masajid that came together, but it was a real diversity of program, even having different types of recitation of Quran every night, and really having really incredible programming. And then the third one was the Best Night of Power program, where you had this amazing lineup of artists and speakers from all around the country. So could you just talk about, mashallah, all the work that's come together for you all, how you really led online with Islah, and what you all have been up to?
Well, this Ramadan, I mean, we saw it, first of all, as the challenge of our lives. Like, this has been the challenge of my career as an imam. And I'll give you an example. Maybe a couple of years ago, I said, the internet, this is shaitan. I don't want to be on the internet. I don't want no part of it. I don't want no Instagram. I don't Facebook. And, so this was a few years ago. I didn't engage as much on the internet. But COVID-19, we were forced to get on the internet. We were forced to look at this as also an opportunity, for us. So especially with the masajid, being shut down. So I think, for us, and for example, I had friends, we had this conversation. The internet is going to lead us to, showing off and lead us to kibrit and everything. We feared the internet, and I can imagine and relate to when, for example, when the printing press, even the television, Muslims, this is the big shaitan, and, all of this stuff. So, but the internet was something that we had not, we didn't have an audience on the internet. So this Ramadan, this is our first time getting on the internet. So we knew, being a smaller organization, we have to be spectacular. We have to offer something that no one else is offering, because we do not want to be overtaken by the larger organizations. Sort of like when the Walmart comes into the community and then the little mom and pop shops suffers. So we saw ourselves as, a smaller organization, but we have to be absolutely spectacular. So we had a good team to come together, and we offered some unbelievable content to the internet. And we are honored for this award, for these few awards. Ramadan, the same thing. I mean, Ramadan, it was a small group of imams. We knew we had to have some awesome content for the internet, and we were able to produce. Alhamdulillah, shout out to my imams, Imam Amin, Imam Suleiman, Imam Fatim, Imam Hamza. They have incredible projects going on. Masjid al-Sabur, Masjid Muhammad in Atlantic City, the Atlanta Masjid of Al-Islam, in the Midtown Mosque in Memphis. Shout out to all of my colleagues, my brothers. These are my brothers. And alhamdulillah, we were able to produce. Shout out to Halali Wood and Umar Reagan, who alhamdulillah, he was able to assist in the effort of putting together these amazing programs. We had Mufti Mink, right? We had a program one day with a fundraiser with Mufti Mink. And we had all the most unbelievable artists in the Muslim community come forward for that unbelievable night of power. So alhamdulillah, thank you. We're honored.
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, I watched a lot of that program. Can you talk specifically about that Night of Power program and why you wanted to bring together artists in that one of the most important nights to touch parts of the community who might not be touched otherwise in a traditional Night of Power program?
Yeah. So what we saw from the content on the internet, like I would occasionally look at some of the content, And I would say that there's an audience that this is not reaching, you know. And for example, after that event, someone reached out to me and they said, man, I enjoyed it. I watched it all the way through. And this someone is someone who is not going to listen to no imam all day. They're not even going to listen to me. They're not going to listen to the shuyukh, you know, on the online giving a lesson, right? But they were tuned in for that, and that spoke to them, and that actually increased their iman. So you have a lot of people, like I said, it was a lot of people who may have not understood the decision to have your artist come through, and we listen to the artist for a Laylatul Qadr program, a Night of Power program. But like I told them, it wasn't for them. My imam friends who criticize, it is not for you. The shayukh who criticize, it is not for you. It was for an audience that's often forgotten. They also need programming too.
Yeah, and of course we know that, mashallah, your PhD work is in this idea of practical theology. And I think that you're such an embodiment of that. Like the Night of Power program is a perfect example of that. Of course, we have to talk about the work that now has continued after Ramadan in this amazing moment of Black Lives Matter and putting Muslim voices at the center of that work. Can you just talk about how you've continued the program with your Day of Rage programs, and what do you think is next for these movements, and what can we look out for from Islam and from your work?
Most definitely. Islah, we want to embody the idea of Islah in the Quran. Islah bain al-nas, bringing people together. For example, we have a lot of people who they are enraged over what has taken place, of course. And they are also enraged at the Muslim community, how the Muslim community, there's been a lack of response in prior years to police brutality. And people have experienced racism right there in their Muslim community. And they're ready to abandon, right? Some people have abandoned the system because of being enraged. Some people have abandoned other than their own race after being enraged. But not us. We don't see that as a solution. You know, as a Muslim community, it's not time to abandon one another. It's time to offer each other an opportunity to step up. So we have organizations. We've been very pleased by the response, especially on the Day of Outrage, when we have a number of letters of solidarity that have come forward. We have been overwhelmed by the response. It is not time to abandon one another. That brother who used to say, that may have said at one point or another, Abid, or he may have referred to Black people, African American people, as a term that is very offensive. We can't cancel that individual. That person has to learn. They are going to learn at this particular moment, and inshallah they make tawbah. And they're going to be my brother. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought tribes together who were at war with each other for years, okay? For years. And Allah brought their hearts together. So I think this is a moment. We have a window right now for the hearts to come together. Islah, what we're doing is making sure that we promote this opportunity. We have, for example, coming up, we're not done yet. We have some more programs coming up. July 3rd, we have Bilal Friday, which we're asking for the Muslim community, the masajid and the centers. On that day, put African-American voices front and center. Online, we want African-American voices front and center. On your minbars, on your podiums, on the pulpits, put African-American voices front and center on July 3rd. And then July 4th, we're riding out. We're going to have a ride out, and we're going to ride by as a collective Muslim community from all backgrounds. We're going to ride out to some of the locations in which our African-American brothers and sisters have been gunned down. We're going to get out and make dua. And this is our ride out. It's going to be like a parade on that day. And we're going to show that Muslims are present, and Islam, it instills within us to be individuals who ride out for justice.
MashaAllah, may Allah continue to bless your efforts. Brother Haroon, who was just on, was saying it was a real treat to discover your work this last Ramadan, and that practical theology is an excellent theme to explore. MashaAllah. Yeah, and I agree. I think that I think you guys are such at the center of this work, and we need you, however we can support. We've shown a few films during our film festival, like Preacher Moss's really amazing jazz comedy film, and Justin Mashouf's film, The Honest Struggle. And we have to think that even while how can we follow the leadership of the inner city masajid who've been doing this work for generations, A, but then B, for the immigrant majority masajid, what are the resources that they can turn to? What are even films that they may be able to screen that talk about intra-Muslim racism? Because while some masajid may think it's all good, without having the conversation, they don't know really what's up. And then at the end of this program, we actually have our brother Anthony Green from New Zealand, and we have who they made this really amazing project called 1 Year On that documented what happened in the year after the Christchurch shooting, right? And this is a larger issue of white supremacy around the world that we have to talk about. Well, we have to say Black Lives Matter and center the Black community. We also, as a white Muslim and as people of non-Black Muslims, we have to take seriously what white supremacy is, how we've internalized these things, how we combat it. And so thank you, Imam Jihad, for your work. Jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, we hope to see you more soon. Is there anything else you wanna say?
Alhamdulillah, I want to thank you all, and I want to make sure that I congratulate you on this beautiful project. I mean, for us, we're overwhelmed by the accolades in regards to the award. This is better than the Grammy, and Dustin, keep going, man. It's better than whatever Golden Globe, whatever. We don't need none of that stuff. Alhamdulillah, we got the Global Muslim Film Festival. You all keep going hard and keep putting in work. And I think, alhamdulillah, we're going to leave something behind for these next generations. And alhamdulillah, I'm proud to say that I was alongside my brother Dustin in leaving something behind for the next generation, inshallah.
May Allah accept from us all. Thank you, Imam Jihad. We'll see you soon, inshallah.
Most definitely. Assalamu alaikum
rahmatullah. Next, we bring in our sister Roeda. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
She's an amazing reporter with the HuffPost. And it's really amazing that in this time where so many of these digital media publications have been downsizing, and we lived in a moment maybe 3 to 4 years ago where everyone might have had like someone focused on different communities and religion, that reporting has for the most part gone away. But mashallah, shout out to HuffPost for really supporting the work, and your work that you've done with HuffPost Religion is really incredible. And so the two articles that really stuck out to me, one was the role of women's leadership this Ramadan. That article is really, really beautiful. We'll put links to it in the comments. And then the other one is about Muslim frontliners in the midst of Ramadan. Could you just talk about your work and kind of what you saw this month of Ramadan and reporting on the holiday?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be chatting with you, Dustin. We all know the great work that you do, and just super blessed to be here. Alhamdulillah, I've been at HuffPost for a number of years now, I think going on to 5 or 6, if I am not mistaken. And so the crux of my work, I cover Islamophobia in the intersection of Muslim culture, life, gender, and politics. And so what's so incredible about covering the Muslim communities, because we're a faith-based community, it means covering so many different issues. We're intersecting with politics, with immigration, with culture, with gender. And so when Ramadan was happening and in the midst of the pandemic, it was something that was particularly unique to our community. And I wanted to bring this to the national level, HuffPost being a national platform, having a national audience, millions of viewers. I really wanted to touch upon a number of different stories. And, if I had the capacity and the bandwidth, there were so many more to do, not just in the month of Ramadan, but beyond. And the two that you mentioned, the first one was really focusing on the frontliners. So I think oftentimes, as all of us know too well, the coverage of Muslims is one-dimensional. It is negative. It is often too many times being tied to issues of national security and terrorism and the war on terror. And we forget about the Muslim American community here who just do the everyday work and live their everyday lives. And among them were the frontliners among the pandemic. And so I did a couple of them. We were talking to Muslim volunteers who were fasting themselves and delivering food to frontline workers. We had Muslims who were the frontline workers themselves in the healthcare industry, who were also fasting during Ramadan, but also working crucial, long, really tough hours on the front lines of the pandemic, people who are seeing patients directly, people who are working on the research end and dealing with vaccines, people in the ER. And so it was incredible to me, I think, highlighting all of these different aspects and all the great work that Muslims are doing, especially when Muslims continue to get vilified in mainstream media. You know, right before Ramadan, we saw the president of the US retweet a tweet that somehow insinuated that, you know, the masajid would be open and that Muslims got it easy during the pandemic compared to other religious groups, which is the furthest thing from the truth. Our mosques have been complying with the nationwide shutdowns. They've been very strict about it. And Muslims know, first and foremost, it says in the faith and the deen, right, that it's incredibly important to heed the rules and to care and preserve human life. And so these were the stories and the narratives that I wanted to elevate in that story. And so I was grateful that I got to do that. And the second one that you mentioned was really focusing on women's leadership. And so you had Dr. Thamara Gray not too long ago, and she was one of the voices in that story. And it was incredibly important to talk to her and the work that she's been doing for decades, way before the COVID crisis and way before the pandemic. I also got to cite data by Dalia Mogahed and her organization, the ISPU, and talk to Hind Makki, also another leader. And so it's super exciting to me when I'm able to source Muslim women and talk to Muslim women in a story written by a Muslim woman in a national news outlet. I think that speaks volumes, and being able to talk to these incredible people on the ground who are doing the really important work for our community was such an honor. And so I was super grateful that I was able to publish these two stories just within the last recent weeks, and super grateful that they got to be highlighted and honored by you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was a really natural choice. I think that the work is so important. You know, one of the things we've been talking about this month during the film festival is how our community is uniquely connected online, but that a lot of the larger corporations may not fully understand that. So like a good instance of that, a good example of that is like Ertugrul. We had this great conversation last weekend that Hind Makki led about Ertugrul, where it's this global phenomenon. Does Netflix even understand its data, right? As to why it's so global. You know, can you talk about your work a little bit and how it's consumed? Do you see the work that you do at HuffPost being consumed around the world, or is it primarily consumed in the US? I wonder if there's a unique, you know, data feedback there with HuffPost.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. HuffPost is a national news outlet. We also have HuffPost offices across the country: HuffPost France, HuffPost Germany, HuffPost UK, HuffPost India, just to name a few. So oftentimes our works are being featured on our sister websites in different countries. So we absolutely have a global audience. And let's be real, the Muslim community in the US, we only make up less than 1% of the American community. But the topics that we're interested in are far and wide. And so I'm talking about global issues in addition to domestic issues. And so we're extraordinarily interconnected. There was a study that came out not too long ago that talked about when a Muslim community somewhere else in the world is hurting, that pain is felt directly by the Muslim community here in the US. And I think we share a wide range of issues, and we all feel different topics. And so not just globally, but I think also in the diversity here in the US. When we're talking about the American Muslim community, especially in mainstream media and in film and in the arts, I think oftentimes we're still equating Muslim equals Arab or Muslim equals Southeast Asian, right? And that's the furthest thing from the truth. We have a huge Muslim population that are Black Muslims, and that's a conversation that we are having a lot more now, but kind of should have been having a long time ago, and hopefully we'll continue to have with the protests that are happening. And so there's a large voice there. We're talking about the largest growing Muslim population is the Latino community, right? So that's a different community to tap into. We're talking about our women, we're talking about our converts, and there's so much to talk about within the Muslim community. And I think this consistently gives us a wide reach of audiences. And so I want to make sure in my reporting and the work that I'm doing that I'm consistently talking to different people from different walks of life. You know, our diversity in our faith-based community is something that we celebrate. And that's what makes it unique covering a faith-based community. I mean, what's really interesting is that oftentimes there are religion reporters out there. And I'm not quite a religion reporter because I don't discuss, say, theology per se or religion from an institutional level, but I'm talking about the politics and the culture and the social justice and the civil rights issues that impact our communities. And that, I think, is such a unique angle. And I'm so grateful that I'm able to cover this so uniquely that I'm touching upon faith, yes, but I'm talking about politics and the policies on the institutional level. I'm talking about the grassroots movements that are happening every day. And so I was able to really carve out this very unique role at a national news outlet. And so I'm so grateful to be able to do it. I don't think we've seen something like it on a national outlet. I think we're seeing more reporters embrace and talk about these issues. I think we still have a really long way to go. Unfortunately, I can count the number of Muslim reporters on my hand, and you mentioned this in the very beginning. Journalism is a difficult industry. It's one that is not financially stable. We face layoffs all the time. Diversity in newsrooms is not at its best. It's a conversation that we're having all over again now with what's happening at these various outlets with Bon Appetit, the Washington Post, and the New York Times. And so now more than ever, I think it's really important to elevate those voices and to elevate these stories, and knowing that there's so many stories to tell. And I think one of the blessings of my role in my job is that I always have something to write about. There's always something to talk about, especially when we're talking about the Muslim community and the Muslim pursuit for social justice and civil rights and equity. And it's something that I hope that I can continue to do for, you know, the next foreseeable future. That's for sure.
I mean, yeah, we pray for you and your continued success and in your work. We need your voice. I think that what you're reporting on, you know, on the ground is so important, and really bringing that national voice is key. And I think that especially the work on, you know, the last thing I guess we could go back to is that point on the continued leadership of women in the masajid going forward. What are your final reflections on that? As you know, we don't know, maybe things will open up here, maybe they won't. I know mosques are starting to open kind of slowly, at least for some outdoor prayers or smaller prayers. Can you reflect a bit on your thoughts on that and what, you know, how we can support that work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, but my work covering, I think, Muslim women and the issue that Muslim women face in general is one of my favorites. I spent all of last year really dedicating my reporting to Muslim women. And so I had done a series of stories that focus on this very unique intersection. I think Muslim women, according to data, they face the most hatred. And I think especially Muslim women who are visible and wear hijab, they tend to be at the forefront of bigotry and at the forefront of Islamophobia. And then internally in the community, we also have work to do. And so they may, come across some issues or some examples of misogyny internally in the community and externally. And I had done a series of stories. I had done an investigation on Muslim survivors of domestic violence a couple months ago. I done another investigation about what it's like swimming as a Muslim woman in the US, and also globally, like in countries as France, and how swimming has become a political act, and really looking back at the Black America and how that had set precedent for the issues Muslim women face now. Muslim women, even when they're driving, right, and what it's like driving as an American Muslim woman, and how something as small as road rage can turn into something a lot scarier, like murder and killings. And so it was natural for me to take on this story. And I think we need to give Muslim women in our community a lot more credit. You know, they take punches externally, they take them internally. Statistics continue to show this and prove this. And yet at the same time, the statistics show that Muslim women are unwavering in their faith, that they love their faith, that they love their community, and they only want to see it better, that they're also more likely to support social justice movements like Black Lives Matter. They're more likely to go out and get a higher education degree and to be advanced in their studies. And so it makes me immensely proud seeing the Muslim women who continue to do the work day in and day out, despite the challenges and despite the obstacles, and want to provide for their community and for other women and for the community at large. And so I think it's extraordinarily important to support our Muslim women, whether it's in the masajid. And I think the ISPU had put out a great toolkit that I cited in my reporting in that last story that you cited about how it's important to create that space for Muslim women, one that is well decorated, well lit, matched resources, having them on the leadership boards, having these scholars, resident scholars like Dr. Gray was mentioning, and all these experts. They know so much better than me. Honestly, I just scratched the surface with my reporting, but talking to them and the resources that they have, it continues to open my eyes and really make me feel so grateful for the work that they do and for the position that I get to be and to honor them. And so I say it's important to support Muslim women with our wallets in our community and vocally and publicly and internally, and the ones in our families. They do so much for us, and they are 50% of our community. And like Hind Mickey told me in my story, when you sideline our women, we're sidelining 50% of our community and our future. And that's the last thing we want to do.
Amen. We thank you for your work and your continued reporting. May Allah continue to give you tawfiq and success. And so thank you for coming on the program, and we look forward to seeing more from you, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair for this award, for the honor of speaking with you. I'm so incredibly humbled and so blessed, and thank you for everything, and looking forward to keep chatting.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Next, right away, we keep it moving. We'll bring in my brother Muhi Khwaja. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you, Dustin?
Uh-oh. There you go. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Now I can hear you. Okay, we're good. So Muhi, of course, is the founder of the American Muslim Community Foundation, a really amazing organization helping Muslim institutions grow around the United States. Muhi, talk about this Ramadan and what you thought was going to happen, and then what you were amazed at kind of what ended up happening.
Thank you so much for having me on. In terms of Muslim philanthropy, Muslim generosity, this is the space in which AMCF operates. And, there's not a lot of research on the American Muslim community when it comes to philanthropy. There's a few places like the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding that has a report, and hopefully over the next few years, we'll continue to produce these reports. And there's also the Center on Muslim Philanthropy out of Indiana University. So, we're getting more academics behind this idea to kind of see how all of this is affected, but nobody could have anticipated this outbreak in terms of how it would have affected daily life, how it would have affected our Ramadan, how it would have affected charitable giving. That being said, at Indiana University, where I'm also faculty and teach fundraising school classes, everything comes down to planning, right? We can plan to have our ducks in a row. We can plan to have all of these outreach going on to our different donors in different ways. But I think what we ended up seeing was organizations who had plans early on more than likely did better. They had a system in place. They knew that they were going to be doing outreach not only online, but also over the mail, and being creative with their outreach to their donors and supporters. And there was a recent article in the Chronicle of Philanthropy that interviewed Muslim organizations in the onset of COVID-19 and fundraising during Ramadan. As you can imagine, majority of Muslims give majority of their charitable giving, whether it's zakat or sadaqah, in Ramadan as well. Some charities get up to 50% or more of their revenue in Ramadan itself. So, you know, across the board, we saw some organizations really struggle and only have about 1 month or 2 months of reserves left in their accounts before Ramadan started. And we also saw other organizations who exceeded their fundraising goals. So, you know, maybe it was that those organizations didn't have accurate data in their databases to reach out to their donors in the past, or that other organizations such as mosques were limited to their funding because they weren't getting their recurring Friday revenue from hosting Jummah several weeks prior to Ramadan. And they missed out on the giving that happens during Taraweeh and other institutionalized giving opportunities. And fundraising in the Muslim community is very event-centric as it is already. We all know the rhythm and rhyme of, you know, the Imam fundraising, asking who can give 50,000, and we all joke about locking the doors and not getting fed until the goal is met. But we also have to look at the strategy behind fundraising, about it being more than just one event in the community to support an organization. How are organizations being sustained each day and throughout the entire year? So that's really where American Muslim Community Foundation comes into play. You know, we focus on helping families distribute their charitable giving. We help them do that through what are called donor-advised funds and giving circles. And then for nonprofit organizations, we help them with short-term solutions and long-term solutions for fiscal sponsorship and endowment services. So alhamdulillah, over the last 4 years, since AMCF started in 2016, we have been able to distribute more than $2.5 million out into the community, back to nonprofit organizations. And we're supporting more than just Muslim-led organizations. It could be your alma mater, it could be your local food bank, it could be a hospital providing services and indigent care. There's so many great organizations doing fantastic work, and we're looking at Muslim charitable giving and how that impacts the entire nonprofit ecosystem. So I'll leave it there and you can ask other questions as well.
Sorry, I muted myself. The work you do is so important because it really is about taking our organizations to the next level. And how do we create long-term planning, and also how do we create a philanthropic infrastructure where our institutions have to report what they're actually doing to the donor base, because that's one of the things that I see with giving cash and these big checks that happen at the masajid in different places, is there may not be a real track record for what people actually are doing in terms of attempting to create change, and whether or not organizations are impactful or they're just good at fundraising. That's a major issue in our community. So with that, I wanted you to talk about this program that you created, that we gave you this award for the nonprofit focused space, where you were talking about 5 minutes of philanthropy and the type of speakers you were bringing on, and why that was important this month of Ramadan.
Yeah, one of the main things in charitable giving is the idea of stewardship. So once a nonprofit receives your support, how are they showcasing to you how they used it? And in this donor life cycle, you have stewardship as kind of the last piece, but also one of the most critical. Because if you want a donor to give to your cause again, become a repeat donor, become a monthly donor, become a major donor, leave your organization in their will, how do you build that relationship with those families? It's through stewardship. So the idea behind 5 Fast Minutes was a daily program in Ramadan that allowed for everyday listeners to learn about a different charity every single day. So we brought on, whether it was a CEO, a founder, a staff member, a board member, a volunteer, a donor to that cause, so that they could tell their story about why they're passionate. And it was really simple. We tried keeping it to 5 minutes. We asked the representative of the organization if they could share more about their cause in 2 minutes or less, what would they say? Everybody has to have their elevator pitch about their organization and what speaks to them and why they're passionate about the mission and vision of the organization. So we asked them that first question. The follow-up question was, if you had a minute or less to thank a donor, what would you like to say? So again, this is like talking to that stewardship component of sharing why it's important for people to support causes and what it means to the organization, what they're able to accomplish with the donor support. The follow-up question after that was then, if you could share a little bit more about your partnership with AMCF and what that means, because we're providing institutional support to these charities, and we're also helping build relationships with their donor base to their charity and our donor base to their charity, and promoting their organization overall as well. And then we asked the individuals if they had to share 3 charities that they personally give to, sadaqah or zakat, what would it be? And then we closed out with just, keeping du'as and good work for all of the institutions and the work that they do. So it was really just a really quick overall series that we were able to do every day. And you can find the YouTube playlist. You can go to our Instagram TV and find all of the videos to learn more about 30 amazing organizations doing great work.
Yeah, thank you so much again for your work and for your support this month, and also as a sponsor for the Global Muslim Film Festival. We really appreciate American Muslim Community Foundation. Thank you so much, Muhi. We're gonna keep it moving, and may Allah continue to bless your work and give you success. And everyone, check out the Instagram pages and all that. Did you have anything else?
Just one last thing, sorry. We do have grant cycles, so nonprofit organizations can find out more about our initiatives. We held a Black History Month initiative in February, Women's History Month initiative in March. We have a current Black Lives Matter initiative going on right now. We did a census engagement with the Muslim community grant. We also did a starting endowments grant, and then we did a COVID-19 response fund grant. So we raised over $350,000 for COVID-19 response and distributed it to nonprofit organizations. So this is the type of work that AMCF does. Please do follow us on our social media handles. And again, thank you so much for having me on, and congrats to all of the recipients today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Likewise.
Bye. Next, we'll go to our brother Anthony. Assalamu alaikum, Anthony.
Walaikum salam.
All the way from New Zealand.
Yeah, it's tomorrow already.
Oh my gosh, it's Monday.
Yeah, so
we want it to be Monday. We're enjoying Sunday still. MashaAllah, but thank you for your support. So Brother Anthony Green is one of the members of this really amazing projects that I learned about through a video that the Cambridge Muslim College did called 1 Year On. And so the website is oneyearon.org, and it's about what happened in the year after the massacre in Christchurch. And so, Brother Anthony, could you talk to us about the project and everything that you all have been working on to amplify the story of the community there?
Yeah, it's kind of humbling to listen to your other guests, because you folks in the States, you're far further down the track than we are, and there's some beautiful work that's going on. We were, in the email I sent back to you, I mean, last year we were completely overwhelmed, really. We didn't have capacity, we didn't have competence in all kinds of areas, and then in March 2019, after that, the flood of journalists, the flood of people that came was just incredible. What it seemed to do, that story seemed to happen, it seemed to impact on people, almost speaking to them about their own condition. So where you've picked up on Black Lives Matter, there was a black lady from Ohio came, and she stood in the mosque, and she said, I tell my kids that when they go out, if they get stopped by the police, they put 2 hands on the wheel just like that, and just follow everything. But even then, I'm worried about a rogue cop doing a bad thing. We had a girl from Idaho came in, and she walked in the mosque and she was in tears all the way in. a woman followed by a woman from Australia, Melbourne, and they were in tears and they're hugging one another. And the girl from Idaho said, she said, what was it? My friends think I'm weird. I don't look at the news. Everything's bleak, and yet I feel powerless to do something about it. So we were. They didn't come for a lecture on Islam, and I'm not the right person to be giving a lecture on Islam. But they came because something spoke to them. Brother Farid, you will have seen in the wheelchair, who lost his dear wife, Sister Husna. People were hugging him. And he said, I'm fine. He said, I don't need their hugs, but they need to hug me, you know? So all this was happening. And then we came through to this year, March this year, and we were very aware that we wouldn't get this again. The build-up started with journalists coming. We knew, because Sister Rawida was talking about connectedness, well, the other guests were talking about connectedness online. What has happened to us is that tucked away in little old New Zealand, which is like, you know, nearly off. Actually, some maps they leave us off, you know, which is which I sometimes feel could be a blessing, you know. But we got impacted by this hate thing, and this hate thing goes back 400 and 500 years, and it's an emotion based on mischief and supremacy and so on. But we, thinking that we were deliciously isolated, we were impacted by this stuff because our stories as Muslims, as ordinary human beings, let alone the faith for one moment, but as ordinary as ordinary people who follow a faith, our stories have been told in a mischievous fashion. And the Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe, he said, stories are not innocent. Stories exist to put you in a certain space and make you be contented with that. And we realized that when the sort of anniversary memorial weekend was coming up, we were going to get this again. And a lot of things just came together in a alhamdulillah way, it's a beautiful way, subhanAllah. But I was at a talk with Brother Farid, his wheelchair. Somebody spoke up from the back, and I heard in the Q&A, and I heard this. I thought, I know this guy. I didn't know him personally, but I knew who it was. And he came, and he was a former journalist, a video journalist. He came together. And then other people came together that we knew, because Christchurch is a small place, about 400,000 people. It's a bit like a village, you know? So we know one another. There's a local radio station and so on, community radio station. So different people were doing different things because people were hurt by what happened. There was a policeman here, and he said, I was offended that my patch now could be seen as a 911 patch, 9/11 patch, you know? So we knew we had to try and tell our own story in some way, however poor we were. But a lot of things came together. Ben Gresham, one of our community, he said, we need to message this. And he took the hadith of when the Prophet, peace be with him, went to Medina, and he was asked, what do? He said, you feed people, you rebuild kinship ties. We became, I can't remember the other stuff, and you pray at night. So we turned this, we looked at a Christchurch invitation, and then we got John Selwood, who I met at the talk with Farid, and he helped us to say, okay, let's put the camera in front of people so that they can begin to tell their own story. All this it's in its infancy, really. We've just started. There's other stuff we're looking to try to do. I don't want to talk about it yet because it may not happen, but it's really critically, it's to let people actually tell their own story, you know.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. And so again, I'll play the banner again. You can find out more on oneyearon.org. I think that so you have a series of podcasts up, you have some articles up already, and I think what's so important here is that as we're talking about, like I said previously, as we're talking about Black Lives Matter, as we're talking about, you know, building movements around the world, anti-Black racism, we also have to talk about the very real death of white supremacy, and we as Muslims have to be on the front lines of eradicating white supremacy. So can you talk about, you know, some of what's happened in New Zealand in the year after, in terms of like the shift at the governmental level in terms of talking about white supremacy, the shift at a community level in terms of being related to the Muslim community? Because what we've seen some of that stuff, and it seems really amazing, but of course you're on the ground, and it would be amazing if you could talk to us more about what's actually happening.
I think we've got, you have to factor in that New Zealand is a bicultural, multicultural place. So
Right.
we have indigenous people, Tangata Whenua, the Maori. There is a treaty that was made in the 19th century, the Treaty of Waitangi. Now, the problem with that, again, is that there are two versions, the English version and the Te Reo Maori version. What most indigenous people would say, and there's a lovely thing you can look at, University of Sydney. There's a website there where they put the camera in front of indigenous Australians and say, ask me a question about Aborigines and Torres Strait Islanders. And one of the questions was, what's the best thing about being indigenous? And one guy said, everything. He said, the land, your connectedness with the land, the ancientness of the land. So that idea of belonging. So what we have, there's a lot wrong here. I mean, we're in no way perfect. And when I've given talks to sort of groups of people, I said, look, don't ask us to be better than we are. We are human beings. We're a community. We have a faith which connects us. But you're right. I mean, the immediate reaction afterwards and the move to ban assault weapons, which you guys are struggling with over in the States, I mean, big time, you know.
Yep.
We are bewildered when we look at the US, I've got to tell you, you know. But there's that move quickly. It didn't make everybody happy. Because there is a good tradition here of hunting and gun ownership. And for the most part, that's done pretty straightforward. It's not used by people running into schools and movie theaters and stuff. But that move happened very, very quickly. The move, the empathy at the prime minister level, the emotional intelligence of the prime minister, again, it was powerful. Not everybody liked that, you know? And we have to accept that when the Adhan was recited in many places, some people thought there was a bit too much. But there was a huge outpouring of support and lots of just beautiful, quietly generous acts, you know, that happened. But the human condition is one of forgetfulness. So I think we have really good grounds. One of the things that John Selwood, the journalist who worked with us to record stuff, he said, look, when journalists come to you, your story, if you choose to give, you don't have to give your story. Your story, if you give it, that's a gift. Your story is a gift and it belongs to you. So knowing what your story means, then you've got to know how to tell your story. But the gift, we're now working on the idea that also the response that we had, that was like a gift. So we have to work in a different kind of space. And that's why we're also talking, we're trying to bring on this idea of a Christchurch invitation to invite people to a better space. And when we put this to one of the Maori academics, and he said, you're talking about authentic belonging. So what we want to try to do is to work against this idea of the othering. There's us, largely a white people, and there's others. And they won't belong in the same way. People have to be, there must be a pathway to belonging. So this is something that we're working on.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. It makes sense.
That's really beautiful. I mean, I think you're right. We have to recognize the indigenous populations as Muslims, especially when it's part of our faith. It has to do with land rights and has to do with the correct ownership of land that in many cases was not gotten within the colonization of the Americas, the colonization of New Zealand, the colonization of Australia. And one of at the rally that we had here in San Diego after Christchurch, because of course people had gatherings all around the world, and we did as well here in San Diego. And there was actually a Maori man who came and spoke. He was just visiting San Diego. And it was really powerful what he said, and I think and there was that idea of invitation, and he was inviting us to come, and so that's interesting. So that's we'll close on that. So you're now you're thinking about inviting people to come to Christchurch to be with the community. Is that correct?
Well, we're talking today within the New Zealand context, and that ripples out globally for people to invite each other to a different kind of space. To recognize that we all have within us from different faith traditions and cultural traditions, we've got the ability to speak well or speak badly. You know, speak a good word or hold to silence. So, you know, the same in the States. You don't have to get on an airplane, but we can't alienate each other. And somewhere we got a tricky dialogue the dialogue to speak to white supremacy is a tricky one, and I don't even pretend to be there, but to know the answer. But the hate that's out there is just absolutely coupled with fear. I'll give you one example. Sorry, because you've got to move on with your program. But a friend of mine I knew in Singapore. I worked in Singapore for many years. This guy, married to a Canadian lady, they went to the States. And one of the things he said to me, he said, you know, when we arrived here, he was in Wisconsin. And he said, one of the things that struck me in the States was fear. He said, I just got the sense of fear that you couldn't pay your doctor's bill, fear that you didn't have insurance, fear that you were going to, and this is a strange thing that sometimes outsiders coming into our space, and we would say the same any country, you know, see some quality that perhaps we all live with and are not aware of. And our part of our mission is to try to speak to the best thing to one another, to invite. So that's the invitation, in a sense, for all of us to invite one another to a better space, a better way of working, so that we can heal. So there's a shifa in all of this, you know. So that's part of it.
I mean,
and Jazakallah for this huge recognition, because we're a far away folk, you know. So.
No, but we love you all, and we wanted to know that we love you, and we see you, and we see your work. And the way that we talk about this is that we as Muslims have a diaspora of hearts, and our hearts are connected all around the world. And so pray for us, and inshallah we'll have to follow up and do something longer as its own standalone program to learn more as you guys continue to develop. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Send our salams to everyone there.
Inshallah. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Finally, we bring in our brother from another mother, Baraka Blue, who's in a tree somewhere in Seattle, liberated Seattle. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you, my brother?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Alhamdulillah, just safely social distancing in a park, about to meet some companions, and safely bask in good company and good sunlight, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Yeah, so we wanted to recognize Wasat for this really beautiful Language of Light Instagram series that you all put out this year. I think that where you were reflecting, you had different people reflecting on different language of the Quran, including Bilal Aware and many others. Could you talk about your conceptualization of that? Of course, you're a man of language, mashallah, with your poetry, and now as the executive director of Wasat. Just talk about the series and what you were trying to do with it.
MashaAllah. So the series, the idea came about because we wanted to do something short, something for every day of Ramadan. And we wanted to do something different and unique. And seemingly every organization has something called Ramadan Reflections. People are not that creative because that's been done 1,000 times. It was a good idea the first time. But essentially, as someone who has devoted my life to exploring and experiencing the power of language, I was reflecting on the fact that language itself is not just the words that we speak, but in fact, the language that we speak is directly related to the way that we think, right? I'm not the first one to say this. People have realized since time immemorial that the abilities to communicate well is related to the ability to think well and think clearly in any language. And many anthropologists have talked about the fact that languages themselves are not just ways of communicating, but actually ways of seeing and ways of thinking. So, and anyone who's learned a second language as an adult, especially, can verify this, because when I was 20 years old, I started learning Arabic, and I've been learning Arabic for 15 years, and I'm still learning. But what became very clear from the beginning is that when I spoke Arabic, I was not only speaking the same words that I would speak, just in making different sounds with my mouth. But actually, when I went into the Arabic speaking mode, I actually started framing existence and my understanding differently. And so obviously a religion nowadays, we tend to think of it as someone's cultural heritage or even someone's ritual practice. But I would argue that primarily what a tradition is a way of seeing. It's a way of viewing existence, a way of relating to the world outside of us, the world inside of us, and then most importantly, to the ultimate reality, the source of existence, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what we hope to do with this series called Language of Light is to each day choose a specific word that is an important technical vocabulary of our tradition of Islam. Because, for instance, if you really understand the word taqwa, which we usually translate as God-fearingness, God consciousness, etc., but really carries a meaning of warding off harm and being in a state of awareness and presence of the nature of reality, and that all that is perishing is the ultimate reality, and there's a source that is animating everything, and that we should act according to right guidance and right action and right thinking. All of this is woven into the one word taqwa, and much more, right? So the idea here is, if we can actually comment and contextualize and reflect on 30 words, right, for the 30 days of Ramadan, that if we understand these words, it will forever change us, how we understand the world and how we understand ourselves. And so we wanted to not just have myself reflecting on 30 words, but we wanted to reach out to a number of our teachers, our friends, our companions on the path, to give a group of people to reflect from their own angles on some of these words.
MashaAllah. Yeah, and I mean, and they're super beautiful. So everyone can check out the series on Instagram and follow WASAT, which is an amazing community institution in Seattle. Could you want to talk a little bit more about WASAT and what you
So
all are doing?
WASAT is an organization here in Seattle, where I'm from. And it comes from this verse in the Quran, which says, "We have made you to be the ummatan wasata," which means a middle or a just nation, to be an example for people and to follow the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So really, it's a community organization founded around 7 or 8 years ago, seeking to embody the prophetic way in our cultural context through learning, through art, and then through service. Those are the primary means. So through studying our tradition, through serving and feeding and assisting our community generally, and then through the sacred arts, because arts are not just, again, like, it's not just a means of expression, but it's a means of self-discovery and self-realization. So that's WASAT, and it's a beautiful organization, and we hope you all visit us when you're in Seattle. And we've been doing more and more programs, like everyone else, online, given the present moment.
Yeah, and let's talk about that real quick. So we have a program coming up, I think on Friday, correct, with Bilal, where we've been supporting WASAT with streaming and streaming together with this series of programs with Bilal. Where can you talk about what's coming up this Friday and where else people can check you out?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So as you mentioned, we were honored to collaborate with you, Center for Global Muslim Life, last week or a couple weeks ago now, on a couple programs, which I think many people saw. They went far and wide online and grew, a lot of traction. Over 30,000 people have viewed the videos. Basically, it was responding to the present moment, and to really contextualize the social unrest, the continued oppression of our Black brothers and sisters in humanity, in this particularly in this country. And to do so, we had a program called Breaking the Idols of Our Time. And Bilal Ware was one of the speakers, and he spoke very powerfully about the spiritual roots of racism and the importance of transcendent narratives of redemption for both the oppressed and the oppressor, which was a powerful topic. But so that was coming on the heels of that was so successful. And we've had Dr. Bilal come up to WASAT and do a number of programs with us. But this Friday, inshallah, for Juneteenth, inshallah, we are going to do a program called The Quran in Chains, which, so for those who don't know, Dr. Bilal Ware is a historian on Islam in Africa. And so he's going to reflect on West Africa, pre-slave trade, through the slave trade, and then reflect on the transatlantic slave trade and the various rebellions, as well as the way that the indigenous spiritual tradition of those enslaved Africans was preserved, and the way that they struggled and fought to preserve their understanding, their deen, and their way of life. So we look forward to that, and it's a really important history for all of us, definitely as Americans and definitely as American Muslims to know, because these are our predecessors, these are our salaf in our lands, and this narrative is underappreciated and understudied. And Dr. Bilal is one of the few people, one of a number of people who have really been doing amazing cutting-edge research and showing this. So you know, amongst that, amongst the things he shows is that there was actually you know, anti-slavery liberation movements in Africa before in Europe, right? Given the nature of the slave trade. And so there was Muslim scholars who were working to abolish slavery before the Europeans did. So anyway, those are some of the topics that will likely be discussed, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah, we wanted to thank you again for taking the time, and thank you to Wasa. We're excited to feature you all, and it's an award well deserved. So we'll see you Friday, Baraka, inshallah.
Thank you, bro. Allah bless you and bless what you're doing in your organization and highlighting the voices of the Ummah. Ameen.
Ameen. Thank you for taking the time. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, so that's it for the third weekend of the Global Muslim Film Festival, and thank you all for tuning in for this program. We have 2 more weekends of the Global Muslim Film Festival. You can find more information at the Center for Global Muslim Life.com, and thank you to everyone that was involved. You can find the Ramadan Awards on the globalmuslimlife.com as well, and there are many organizations that we didn't feature here in the awards, just, you know, like the Oscars. Sometimes the program is too big. So alhamdulillah, inshallah, next year, and it's our hope that next year we can really feature languages beyond English as well, because we know that it wasn't as global as it could be. But we want to continue to support global Muslim life and work around the world. Peace and blessings to you all.